Well, greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to comment that at this particular time, when there's so much happening in our world and so much change, the world isn't the same as we knew it a few months ago. Very, very different. And we need to do different things to manage what's happening in our world. And you're doing one of them right now by being here on this webinar and this webinar series. And just take a moment to affirm yourself for that. You're taking what in the terms of the Eightfold Path would be called right action. You're doing something that will help hopefully create less suffering, greater peace, and hopefully compassion and the capacity to in some way serve others at this time. So I really am grateful that you're here, and it's my pleasure to serve you today. My talk is on resonance, and resonance is a very similar concept to connection, but at the same time, there are some quite clear differences. And so I'd like to explore that a little with you. But first, I'd like to guide you in a brief meditation, just to drop in and be fully present here with each other at this time. So if you're in a place where you're able to sit comfortably, let your spine be long, and lightly close your eyes or look down at the floor. And I invite you to do that. And for just a couple of minutes, it won't be long, just a couple of minutes. Put other things aside if you can. If you're doing anything where you're busy and you're just listening to the audio, that's fine. You can just join in with the words, even if you can't engage fully. So lightly closing your eyes, planting your feet firmly on the floor if you're sitting in a chair. Or notice your seat if you're sitting on the floor. Feel the length of your spine. Just a gentle lifting of your spine, no strain. And as you feel the length of your spine and your body, just become aware of your body now. The wonderful thing about your body is it's always in present-centered time. So it's a great way to bring us to presence. So just become aware of your body now, and if possible, let go of anything else that might be going on. Thinking, worrying, whatever else is there, just from now, just for a few moments. Just let your body be your focus of attention. And take a couple of easy breaths, no strain, just natural, easy breaths, but with a little bit of deepening, just a gentle deepening. And then notice where the breath lands in your body, where the breath is most felt in the body. Wherever that is, just go there and be with that place in your body for a few breaths. And feeling that sensation in your body where breath and body meet. And for a few breaths now, let go of the effort of breathing and let the body breathe you. Let your body breathe you. Just aware of the muscles in the body that engage to support the breath without any effort. And how that breath is gently received by the body and expelled by the body. This body here now, this breath here now. And try on for the next 3 breaths, just 3, following the breath with complete focus, nothing else happening, nothing else to notice, just the breath for 3 easy, no strain breaths. Then let your awareness come back to your body, back to your face, back to your eyes. And let your eyes slowly open. And feel your presence here now. As you listen to the sound of my voice, perhaps a little more present than you were at the beginning of the webinar. And if you feel that, just notice it. Notice it in your body. Notice what else is happening for you right now. And before I go any further, I'll give you a little tip. And this is a good one at this particular time. If at any time you need to become present to now and let go of what's coming into your mind, it only takes 3 breaths. Actually, it only takes 1, but we give it an extra 2 for good measure. So anytime at all, if you can just come present to your body and take a couple of breaths, it will bring you into now, at least more into it. Yes, you'll still notice your mind racing. Yes, it'll still be running off with all the other stuff that is busying it. And that's understandable. We're living at a time where there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of unknowns. And we're not used to dealing with those a lot of the time. We like predictability. We like things to be secure. We like things to be known. And this is not one of those times. So in order to be present to what's really going on, the breath will help. The breath is your friend, and your body as well. Breath and body in the present is a great way to just be grounded in now and not wherever else you might be going with your mind, into the past or into the future. So thank you. Janae says, I feel so settled. Thank you, Janae. So I want to tell you a little story to begin with. About a week or so back, I was teaching online. We decided one of our courses that was scheduled to be in Denver, Colorado, we couldn't travel there. The students couldn't come there. So we decided to put it online. It was a pretty bold experiment, as it was a course. We taught many courses online, but this was the first time for this particular one, which is highly experiential. So I decided to lead quite a few experiences during that course. And my intention was to hopefully develop some connection experientially rather than cognitively. And after one of the experiences, one of the participants shared, and it was very similar to what you did now, and it was yoga with meditation and what we call dropping into that deep place of present-centered awareness. And so after that experience, one of the participants said, you know, I feel a resonance. And I said, what do you mean by resonance? And she went on to say that she felt a connection to her classmates, to the other participants in the course, to me, and even beyond that, out into the world. And that word resonance resonated with me because I'd heard it before, and I'd heard it in another story. And it's really a connection that goes beyond the physical elements that we normally associate with connection. It's a feeling of connectedness, but a feeling of connectedness in a very profound kind of way. And where I'd heard of this before was the story of Edgar Mitchell. In 1971, Edgar Mitchell was the 6th person to walk on the surface of the moon. And he was one of the people who spent the longest time on the moon. He was there for 9 hours. And he was on his way back with his partner in their spacecraft. And their work was done. There was nothing more for them to do except gaze out the window, I guess. And he was doing that, but he was also feeling the weightlessness in his body. And in a sense, he tuned into the present moment. He tuned into now. He let go of all the busyness in his mind that he'd been thinking about with all the tasks he'd had to do and the experiments and so forth. And now he was just on his way home, letting go, feeling good, feeling the weightlessness in his body and looking out the window. And as he looked out the window, he saw all of the heavens and the moon and the sun, because the spacecraft he was in was rotating on its own axis. So he was able to get a view of everything in about less than 30 seconds or so in the rotation. So he was seeing the heavens, the moon, the sun, the stars, everything, and feeling his body and breathing. And he dropped into a level of presence where he had this quite amazing experience. he immediately began to feel a connection, a resonance with everything. And then he had this momentary realization that all of us and everything in creation is all sourced from the same material, basically stardust, he called it. So we're all stardust. So in that moment, he had this epiphany that we are all one. Now, it wasn't something he thought with his mind. It was something he experienced with his whole being. We are one. And he felt it, and he appreciated it, and it felt fantastic. When he came back to Earth, he didn't really know what had happened. So he went to the scholars at Rice University in Houston. And some of the scholars there of the ancient texts and Sanskrit texts and so forth were able to inform him that he'd had what they thought was a Sankalpa Samadhi. And a Sankalpa Samadhi, really translated, the best translation, is a realization of clear seeing. In other words, insight or clear seeing, where we're seeing things, in Mitchell's words, as they really are, not the way we think they are. And in that moment of connectedness and feeling we are all one, that was basically clear seeing. He was seeing things as they really are. Now, my belief is that that's an amazing thing, and it's true that we really are all connected. And that's what resonance is. And we can feel that resonance with ourselves and with each other. But in order to feel it, it's not what we do to get to it, it's what we let go to get to it. And his was a process of letting go. And the ancient yogis knew that it was a process of letting go. And it still is a process of letting go. And if there was ever a better time for us to let go of some of the constructs that we use to shape our world, now is that time. In fact, in the words of Patanjali, in the very first sutra, he says, now the discipline of yoga. And I guess one interpretation of that is there's a right time. There's a right time to begin the deeper practices of yoga. And now is that time. And by the way, when I talk about yoga, I'm talking about all of yoga, the whole of yoga, not simply asana or some little aspect of yoga, but all of yoga, which really is a transformational science. It's really about change. It's really about supporting people becoming who they are, letting go of the stuff that keeps us separated from that level of higher consciousness, which we're all capable. So perhaps now is the time for these kinds of practices. So what I'd like to do is share with you in the rest of the time we have some of the things that probably help with this. We're living in a time now where there's a deep desire for connection. We want to connect. We're doing things like you're doing right now, being on this webinar as a way of connecting, and that's wonderful. That's a wonderful way of connecting to other people in our world. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it's interesting that oftentimes when we think of wanting to connect, we think of wanting to connect externally. It's people out there. And that's understandable too, because we're really pack animals in this world. We like to be with our own kind. We like to gather with our own kind. But is that real connection? Is that really resonance? Are we fully connected? And if you think back to a few months ago when you're out and about and you were going to wherever you were going, where there was lots of crowds, perhaps, train stations, supermarkets, and the various places we inhabit, lots of people around. But were we really connecting? Or were we just only specifically connecting with those handful of people with whom we felt a resonance? All of us have people in our lives where we feel a resonance. It's kind of how we pick our best friends, kind of how we pick our partner in life. There's a resonance. Well, that same resonance, I'll put it to you as a possibility, that same resonance is there all the time, and it extends way beyond the people in our close-knit circle. If we're willing to go there, if we're willing to go to the place it takes to feel and experience that resonance. Now, to me, whenever I felt that, one of the things that's always been present before and during is a connection to myself. In order to connect to others, I first have to start here with myself. I have to connect to myself at a deeper level. Now, it's also true that for most of our waking life in our modern world, we're not very connected to ourselves. In fact, we're connected everywhere else but. We walk around with the cell phone in our hands, and that's our portal to the outside world outside of ourselves. And that's where we spend a lot of time. We also spend a lot of time engaging our world externally. And that's understandable. It's almost like a necessity for life. I certainly wouldn't want to get in the subway in New York on a busy day and be inward focused. I need to be externally focused. It's a prerequisite. But the question is, how much time in my life do I actually spend connecting to myself? And if I just go on autopilot, it probably isn't going to be a lot. I have to actually make a little bit of effort to take the time for self-connection. And for those of you who have a meditation or yoga practice, you know what that's like. If it's a practice that takes you into deeper levels of presence and awareness. Now, there's some yoga practices that don't do that. There's some that are very externally oriented, and they have a purpose too. That's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Going for a run while you're listening to music on your earbuds, that's probably good for your body. It's great for your body, but it's not going to do a whole lot to connect you to yourself because you're being mostly externally oriented while you're engaging that practice. So I'm talking about the kinds of practices that bring you home to you. Now, the little meditation that I led at the beginning is one example of that kind of practice. In our Phoenix Rising work, Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, we have a slang term for it, it's called dropping in. It's like dropping into a place of self-connection as a prerequisite for greater self-understanding, self-knowledge, awareness, insight, all of those things that potentially can help us transform or change our life. So how do we go about self-connection? Well, there's many, many ways to do it. And I'm going to share a few of the things from my own practices here with you. And what I invite you to do is take or leave them, if it works for you. One of my favorite sutras from the Dhammapada is the Kama Sutra, where the Buddha says, don't believe the textbooks, don't believe the scriptures, don't believe the saints and sages until you've validated whatever practice they're prescribing with your own experience. And so he even said, don't believe me. And I'm saying the same thing too, don't believe me. So any of these things I offer you, I invite you to try it on. Now you have to try it on for a while before you know it's going to work or not. In fact, most people, neuroscientists say to change a habit takes 30 days. So you really have to try it on for a while to even know if it's going to work for you. That's the thing with holistic approaches. They take longer and they take more sustained effort than just taking a pill. So if you want to try any of these, try them for a while, give them a good try. Okay. So one of the things that I love to do is to get out and walk. I get out and walk in the morning and maybe take a 3-mile walk, but it's not any kind of walk. It's not any old kind of walk. It's not earbuds in and listening to music or running my head, running the script for the day. What am I going to do today? How am I going to do that? And what about that thing that happened the other day? Da, 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 da. That's all present and past. So when I take a walk, I make a deliberate effort to be present. Now it takes a while. As soon as I get out of my driveway, the old mind kicks in and it's going to rattle and roll for a while. So I just notice that. The best thing to do when you're not present to yourself is notice not being present to yourself. That way you have the master switch and you can notice it and you can switch it if you want. But the first thing is to catch it, to notice it. So whenever your mind is fully engaged, you notice thoughts of fear, anxiety, da, 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 all going on at once. Best thing to do is just say, noticing thoughts, noticing fear, noticing whatever, and hold it gently. Whatever that experience is that's coming to you, hold it gently. You don't have to push it away. Push it away, you set up a battle, and that doesn't work, right? So the first thing to do is invite it in. Hold it. If you have fear, hold it gently, embrace it, feel it, let it be there. And then make a choice to become more present to now. The beautiful thing is, if you can get present to now in your body, it's a place of great refuge, great safety. In fact, there's a saying that I heard in my early days of yoga way back, and it was, your body is the most sacred place of refuge you can ever come. And I believe that's true, particularly if you can come to your body in the now, in present-centered awareness. So I take my walk and I look around and I take in what I'm seeing. I take a couple of breaths and I smell what I'm smelling. I listen for sounds and I hear what I'm hearing. And then I come to my body and I feel what I'm feeling. And then as I walk, I notice walking. And whatever comes into my arena of awareness from whatever source, from whatever sense, I simply notice it and I embrace it. And then I come and I wait for the next thing, whatever that might be. And I just simply have this practice of embracing all experience as I go for my walk. And sometimes I lose it. A lot of times I lose it. But you know what? You can always start again. That's the beauty of this practice. There's no way you can't start again. All it takes is a moment of awareness, a breath, and a noticing. All right. So that's one practice. That kind of really helps me get ready for my day. And usually when I come back from that walk, I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling ready to engage. And then I can turn on my mind and say, okay, so what's the to-do list for today? Yeah. But I also include in my practice a couple of other things. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I spend hours and hours a day practicing. So I'll mix and match. And I'll tell you towards the end the one thing that I always do. But basically, a walk is one thing. Another is a yoga practice. And the yoga practice that I like to engage, I have a particular way of starting that practice. And it's with fairly vigorous breath and movement. And the movement is synced with the breath. I can give you a little example, like I might raise my arms up above my head. You can try this with me if you like. Take a deep breath in and just let the arms flop. And I'll do that several times over. And I've got about 10 or 15 different moves like that I do. And I engage that for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And it doesn't have to be a strain. It's not like, oh, this is tough, I really got to get in here. No, it's just a very easy synchronization of movement and breath. And for those of you who are familiar with or have practiced Kundalini yoga, it has a similar flavor to that kind of yoga practice. And the idea basically is we're getting energy moving in our body. We're getting energy flowing. And energy flowing is a great way to come into present-centered awareness. It's a great way to inhabit your body, to become embodied, to become present to now. Now, one of the things it's also very good for, though, as well as that, is to prepare for the deeper practices of yoga. And that's mainly the reason that I do it. But in and of itself, it's beneficial. If you just do that for 3 to 5 minutes, anywhere, anytime, any day, it's going to drop you in a little more present, a little more now, a little more here in your body and your breath. So it's a great thing to do as a stress relief, as well as a preparation for the deeper transformational practices. Okay. So after I've done that, the next thing that I do, and this is one that you can try as well at some time, is to do a couple of yoga postures. And they can be any kind of yoga posture you want. Your favorite, your unfavorite, doesn't matter, okay? But the way you engage it is slowly, not a real quick vinyasa flow or anything like that, just a very slow entry into a particular posture, and then find an edge. Find a place where there's just the right amount of stretch, not too much, not too little. Find that place and hang out there for a while and breathe. And the reason the edge is so important in my practice and in the work that I do is that the edge is a place of focus. It's another point of focusing attention, focusing awareness. And if you're really at an edge in a yoga posture, there's probably a pretty good likelihood that you're not thinking about breakfast and you're not thinking about the thing you got to do next week. It's going to bring you to now in your body. And that's the idea of the edge. So I usually do 2 or 3 or 4 postures where I find that edge. Sometimes it'll be a standing side bend where I'll feel the edge down one side of my body. And I'll hang out there for a while and breathe and notice. Nothing else, no agenda, other than being present to the experience of myself that I'm creating. That's it. And so I'll do that for a few postures. And then the next thing is a couple more postures where I can really drop in. And I drop in by being present to breath, present to body, present to now. And whatever experience is there, I embrace it. Now, oftentimes when you engage these deeper practices, things will come up, things will arise. You'll notice sensations, you'll notice feelings, you'll notice urges, you'll notice desires, you'll notice pleasant, unpleasant things. All of this is part of the experience. And so my practice is about inviting all of that, being with all of that, not trying to analyze it, not trying to push it away, not trying to fix anything. This is the real key, not trying to fix anything. We are so good at wanting to get to the next thing and fix whatever's not right now or what we feel is not right. And this is totally counterintuitive in that regard. It's about not fixing. It's about being with, being with, being with. Because after all, remember, what we're trying to do here is connect to ourselves. So it's all about being with. And I'll do that for 2-3 postures, and breathing and noticing and receiving from my body, receiving whatever's there. I'm very aware of if my head grabs onto something and runs away with it, and then I can just gently bring it back. Nothing bad about that. It will happen, but just notice when it does and then bring it back. Bring it back to now, bring it back to the breath, bring it back to the body. So that's the next part. And then finally, I sit in meditation for about 10 to 15 minutes. And my form of meditation is a very simple anapanasati meditation from the Theravadan Buddhist tradition. And it's basically just a breath meditation. There are 16 phases to it, but I usually only do the first 2, 3, or 4. And it's a breath body meditation. It's very similar to what I led for you in the beginning of this talk. And then I'm done. I'm ready for my day. Except for one more thing. I'll leave you with this, and I'll invite you to even do this right now if you've got a moment. So just place your hand on the center of your chest. Take a couple of easy deep breaths. Just close your eyes gently. Feel your body. Feel now. Feel the breath. Just drop in to now, this body here now. And within this body, there's infinite wisdom. Just imagine the miracle of life that's right here, right now, flowing in this body. All the things that make life possible are happening right now, right here, this body. And there's this connection, this resonance to all things, living, not living, all things everywhere. If we take Edgar Mitchell seriously, right now, we're all one. And there's a wisdom underlying all of that, holding it all together. Just take a moment to tap into that infinite wisdom and ask, what really matters for me right now? What matters? What's important? And let yourself receive that not from your thinking mind, but from your body, from your body's awareness, your body's knowing. Feel it, receive it, sense it, notice it. And let it be. No need to do anything with it right now. No need to fix anything. Just notice what matters, what's important. And take a breath, let it go, let the hand come down. And then you can open your eyes again. And for me, when I receive that, it's a guide. It's like a finger pointing the direction as to where I want to take my life that day and what things I might want to engage that will support that. Sometimes I get something like love. Love is what matters now. Just to give you an example. I don't know what you got, but whatever you got, it's great. Whatever you got is right for you today, trust me. And so when I get, say, love, it's like, okay, how do I enact love today? Because love is a verb, it's not a noun. It's about doing, being and doing. So I ask myself that, what's the opportunity I have today to love, to be with love? And then, some little things will come up, things that I might be able to do, little conversations I might have. So whatever it is, and I invite yours, if you want to type it into the chat, that'd be awesome. You can use the chat here. And you can also use the question and answer mode as well if you have questions for me. I'm going to be pausing in a moment for questions. We'll have about 10, 15 minutes for questions, and I'll gladly attempt to answer any question. Can't say that I do. Will. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you that too. But please, yeah, I see some of the words coming in: kindness, peace, beautiful. Yeah, there's a sense, I get this sense that when I drop into that place, I really get in touch with my truth. I really get in touch with what matters, but not just what matters to me personally. It does very much so, but it also connects with a lot of other things that we're all looking for. Love, peace, kindness, all of those things, we're all looking for that. Calmness, serenity, equanimity, hope. We may get an ugly one, right? What matters to me right now is escape. I need to get out of here. All right, that's okay too. So don't censor them. Don't push them away if they don't seem all that rosy. But things like connection, very important. Resonance, togetherness. Yeah, all of these things. Giving, love, family, very much so right now. Right now, our loved ones and our family are so important to us. Yeah. And so here's the little, I'll just finish off with this. Once we're that connected to ourselves, we often then feel, I notice I do, or for the rest of that day, I'll feel a connection to people who are not even here, not even with me. My father-in-law was hospitalized a few days ago for a cardiovascular condition. And it's one of the worst times in the world to be hospitalized. And I felt very sad about that. And I know that he felt very lonely because nobody could be with him. He was taken off and taken care of course, but couldn't have that personal, physical connection. And so that evening I sat for a while and let myself drop into myself. And through being present to myself, I could feel that connection. I could feel the compassion. I could feel the love. And I'm hoping at some level he may have felt that too. So lots of things we can do, particularly now at this time when we're spending so much time at home and alone. My suggestion is connect with yourself. And through connecting with yourself in your practices, you may in fact find you have a resonance with many, many more people out there. This event that we're facing right now, this pandemic, is the first time, I believe, in human history where we've all been present for the same event. We're all here right now. Every person in the world is right here right now facing this same reality. And that's probably the first time that's ever happened. That in itself, even though it's a terrible thing around which it's the thing that's bringing us together is such a terrible thing that's affecting so many people in such painful ways. At the same time, it is bringing us together. Let's hold that togetherness. Let's cherish that. Let's connect to ourselves. Let's connect to each other. And in so doing, hopefully find a way to find greater love, compassion, and service to others. And in closing, I just want to thank everybody who's out there right now engaging on the front lines of this pandemic. And there's something about that too. The people doing that, they have to be present. They are present. They're present to what's right in front of their nose. They can't have their head running off with all kinds of fears, worries, and so on. They're probably there. They have their fears. They have their anxieties. I'm sure it's absolutely positive that that happens. But they're being with them in a way where they're allowing that to be there and at the same time going in and doing what they need to do with all the fear, with all the anxiety, but not letting it get in the way. And they can only do that because they're connected to themselves. So I pay tribute to all of those people. And I pay tribute to all of you who are here today, open, learning, growing, changing. So I'm going to stop there and answer a few questions. Let's see what I got in the way of questions. If anxiety overwhelms you and the body and mind tightens, what do you suggest? I'd suggest basically, what I'd suggest here is welcome that. It sounds crazy and it sounds counterintuitive, but notice the anxiety as much as you can. Now, it may become to the point where you can't do that, and I understand that. But if you can feel the anxiety and hold it gently and acknowledge that it's there, because it's perfectly natural that it would be. This is tough stuff we're dealing with here. And yes, if anything will provoke anxiety, this will do it. So there it is. Yeah, I'm feeling anxious. and breathe and notice it and breathe and notice it. And then if you can, make a choice how you want to be with it. How do I want to be with this anxiety? Yeah. Now, oftentimes just simply acknowledging it and letting it be there will lessen it, will lessen it. But if it doesn't, then you might need to up the ante a little bit. Maybe engage your body, maybe go for a walk, maybe get away from it, maybe go into the kitchen and make yourself a nice meal. You can also distract yourself from it as well. And sometimes you might have to do that. But if you can, the best thing is to really just be present to it and let it be there and let it work its way through. Emma Charlton, thanks Emma for your, you got the next question. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Can you recommend any philosophy books in the best translation, please? Yeah, I can and I will. My teacher, well, someone I regard as one of my teachers, is Gil Fronsdal at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. And Gil has written an amazing translation of the Dhammapada. And I'd highly recommend that. There's also a book he has called The Buddha Before Buddhism. I'd recommend that as well. I have a book, Turn Stress into Bliss, which is not exactly philosophical, but it's fairly practical. And it's 8 weeks based on 8 themes where you can work your way through the themes. Those themes apply to life very closely, but there's also practical things that you can do around each theme. So there's just a few of them, and there's more. And I also have a book list on our website, PRYT.com. That's easy to remember, Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, or PRYT.com. And on that website, you'll find resources, and there's a whole list, not just of books, but there's also articles on neuroscience and stuff like that there, which are free and available. You're more than welcome to check that out. And then another question. A lot of my patients are alone with no family. A lot of my patients are alone with no family or close friends. What would you suggest? Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that's tough. It is hard to be alone and no family, no friends. And what I would suggest, 2 things, is urge them to reach out if possible, to just simply make a list of perhaps people they could call, and to also ask for help. It's a hard thing to do, I know, for many people. My wife and I have been taking food to an elderly couple who really have a hard time getting out and don't have anyone to take care of them. There are people in the community who want to help. And so I would urge them, if possible, to reach out and connect and to ask for help. This is not a time, I think, where people are gonna, if they can help, they will, I'm sure. And so let's try that. That sort of connection is important, but also it's great to have a time just to talk. And I'm a great believer at this time, like I make a point every day of calling 3 people, mostly family, but I go beyond that as well, for 1 or 2 people and old friends and friends that I haven't seen in a while, and make a point of, I might send a text first and say, hey, you got time for a chat, and just talk. And so I'd suggest that to them too. We do need to connect. We do need each other. So thanks for that question. Thank you for your being available. How are we going to help in India and Africa? Yeah, the India and Africa and those other countries, that's really, really difficult. And I honestly, for now, I think we need to take care of what's in front of us and hopefully find some generosity of spirit to help in those places as well. It's very, very sad what's happening all over the world. If there's any way to reach out to caregivers there and support them, I think that's really, really a great way to go. Find out if there are any charities that are supporting the caregivers in those countries, because they're the people who really need the support to be able to do what they do and be out there helping others. Helen says, I'm working with families where anxiety is huge and seems to become a virus itself. Yeah, it does actually. Anxiety is a virus too, especially where they're in close proximity to each other. How can we help calm the whole family? Yeah, That is very difficult. I don't know if you can connect with them through this medium, through Zoom or something like that. I have seen a lot of that happening here in our part of the world, where people are getting together and connecting and having little family gatherings. And oftentimes that can be done with a little facilitation from a social worker or a therapist or whatever. It's a tough time, and when we're anxious, we tend to project the anxiety onto others. And so one of the things I would really support with everybody in any family situation, more so right now than ever, is notice your own stuff. Notice when you're upset, notice when you're anxious, notice when you feel not feeling well, and take a time out. We're living so close to each other all of the time. The old time out, go to your room and meditate for 10 minutes, or go to your room and just play some music or whatever, and then come back and re-engage. We can't be engaging all the time. We really need to have that break, that little bit of solitude for ourselves. Yeah, and if you can get to them in a family chat, that's great too. You can help share those kinds of suggestions with them and ask them what they're doing when they get to that boiling point, and what are their coping strategies, and how might you help with something else. Sarah, thanks for the great talk. Any suggestions how to deal with frightening dreams? Practicing yoga, taking walks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dreams. I don't really know for sure, but I know for myself, when I'm engaging my practices every day, I tend to sleep better. I can also do a practice in the evening, and that tends to help as well. But just a short one, also maybe even a little journaling at the end of the day. And one of the things I'm a great believer in is a gratitude journal. Just simply at the end of the day, become aware of a few things that you're grateful for, a few things that have happened in your day that really have felt great. Sometimes when in a time like this, we see all the bad stuff and we focus on that. I'm also very aware that I don't like to watch the news too much. I want to know what's going on in the world, but I don't want to stay glued to that news all the time, every day. So I make sure I wean down on that when it's getting towards bedtime. Like when it's like, if I'm going to go to bed at 9, 10 o'clock, I'm going to turn that off at 7 and just do something else. That helps a lot. And also breathing, and also listening. I will sometimes also listen to a Dharma talk or listen to a guided meditation as I lie down, and that really helps me sleep as well. Okay. How did the inquiry that took us through, how did I word the inquiry? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's just really placing your hand on your chest when you've dropped in. You really need to drop in a little bit first, and to simply ask what really matters. What really matters to me now? The now word is really important. Just looking down the chat here. What do I think of mass meditation? Like getting together to meditate. I think it's a great idea. If you can get a bunch of people together on a Zoom call and even take turns. I belong to a men's group, and we met on last Sunday online, and it was fantastic. We're a group who really, love to support each other and share our truth with each other and deal with what's going on in our life together. And it's a great way of helping each other. And that was fantastic. It worked well online. Everybody got to share. Everybody got to connect. And that's real connection. That's resonance, where you're with a group of people where you can really let down and be yourself, and you can really be received. So I would suggest, if you're going to do that, if you're going to get together to meditate, and then if you want to have a group sharing of any kind that go with it, make sure it's just one person talking at a time, and make sure that it's personal. And we're not talking about concepts or things that people should be doing or shouldn't be, and we're not giving each other advice. We're just simply deeply listening to each other. That's really, I think, very helpful. So yeah, by all means. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of our time. It's 9:45, and so let me just conclude by saying thank you so much for spending this time today. Please use resources that you can find. Keep connecting with yourself, and keep feeling that resonance. If you can find it within yourself, you'll find it externally, even if people aren't in your immediate environment. And one of the things I like to do is to also connect through loving kindness. And those of you who practice metta, which is a fancy Pali word for loving kindness, we can do that. And I'd like to conclude with that just by saying, if you can take it for yourself, I offer myself freedom from suffering, peace, and I will take care of myself happily. For all beings, for all people, everywhere, I offer them a lessening of suffering, finding peace, and taking care of themselves happily. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure to serve you today, and may you find peace in your day.